A prospector named Charlie Arizona once settled down for the evening long ago just southeast of Borrego, New Mexico. When suspicious sounds awoke him, his first thought was that an intruder had descended upon his camp. However, the only thing Charlie saw was a light far off in the distance, and Charlie's imagination then turned to the possibility that he was seeing someone lost amidst the mountains, carrying a torch or a flashlight to guide their way. Perhaps Charlie thought someone had found his camp and was looking for safety. Unfortunately, this was not the case. As the light drew near, Charlie saw its terrifying owner in horrific glory. It was a tall, thin, skeletal figure stumbling across the track, and from its rib cage, a light shone like that of a lantern, casting a dim glow in the still night. The figure stood alarmingly tall, over 8 feet. Just when Charlie thought a confrontation was imminent, the Borrego Phantom continued on its way, disappearing behind some rocks. Now, only a few years later, another prospector, this time with a companion, had spotted the same eerie figure. And just like Charlie, they were settled in for the night when a light appeared in the distance, and one of them saw it, a skeleton. The other did not, and refused to believe his partner had witnessed this. All he saw was the light, which in his mind could have easily come from another human being. 1 year later, another witness reported an encounter with the Borrego Phantom at the Vallecito station. Here, rumors of the apparition spread, and today people descend upon the area hoping to catch a glimpse of this terrifying living skeleton. Some even claim to have taken pot shots at the being only to have it stumble onward into the wilderness. Don't think that you're safe from the skeleton creatures at home, because one witness in 2008 had the fight of her life in the safety of her own bedroom, and she reported her experience to a friend of What Lurks Beneath, Barton Nunnally. The witness, whom we will call Samantha, was around 6 years old. She, along with her sister, mother, and mother's boyfriend, had just relocated to a new home in Pleasantville, New Jersey. Unsettlingly, Samantha's bedroom had a door that would lead to the attic. Now, one night while fighting sleep, she finally dozed off around 3 or 4 in the morning. When she woke again, the attic door was wide open, and she tried to rouse her sister, who slept in the same bed, but she remained unresponsive, and suddenly something moved in the corner of Samantha's vision. Whatever it was stood about 4 or 5 feet above the bed. Although it was difficult to see in the dim light conditions, Samantha blinked, rubbed her eyes, and eventually focused on a terrifying intruder. Samantha said, "What I saw almost made me pee on myself. Looking directly at me through empty eye sockets was a skeleton. It had on a black cape, and the inside was blood red." Samantha realizes how absurd her description sounds, but remains adamant about what she saw. She said that she cowered beneath the covers, too afraid to move. Eventually, she looked again to see if her eyes were playing tricks on her, but the figure remained in place. Samantha told Barton that she mustered up enough strength and ran out of the room, leaving my sister and the ghostly figure, whatever it was, behind. I ran to my mother, told her what had happened. Of course, she didn't believe me, but stayed with me until I fell asleep. Now, to this day, I don't know what it was. Now, tales of living skeletons, or to borrow a term from Barton, skeletoids, thanks buddy, are surprisingly common in our ancient myths and legends. For instance, the Old Testament chapter of Ezekiel features dried human bones that reassemble themselves. Legends in Finland and Sweden speak of Clutchbone, a skeletal phantom whose forehead is said to hold a light that shines perpetually. In the Solomon Islands, a figure known as the Malawato is said to stalk the forest in search of its next victim. And once it gets a hold of its victim, it force feeds them Sbarro pizza. Now, in the New World, there are various Native American tribes that do believe in similar skeletoids, including the Ojibwe and Algonquin. They fear a figure known as Baycock or Paguk. This deathly figure is a little more than an animated skeleton. In fact, the Anishinaabe term Bakak literally means skeleton, although this is more of a description of emaciation rather than just bones. The Baycock is said to resemble a skeleton covered in see-through transparent skin with glowing red eyes. It is known for using invisible arrows or a heavy club to attack its victims, whose liver it then devours. Skeletoids also appear in the historical record. In the 13th century, King Alexander of Scotland had his wedding dance interrupted by an animated skeleton that crashed the party. And we're not talking about meth heads here, because in 1875 in Cumberland, Amelia Cranswell had her bedroom invaded by another skeleton. Her brothers rushed to her aid, only to find her lying unconscious in a pool of her own blood, lacerations on her neck and shoulders. And when they looked across the lawn, the spindly figure was fleeing the scene of the crime. In the early 19th century, George Nelson wrote in his journals of a being from Cree mythology known as the Pakak, which, while skeletal like the baycock, is more like the wendigo, in the fact that it evolves from a victim of starvation rather than existing as its own entity. In Nelson's account, one of his acquaintances was sleeping one evening after a very successful beaver hunt when he awoke and found, to his horror, a ghastly old man sitting by the campfire. The account reads this: "He had but skin and bone, not the least particle of flesh." According to the story, the witness then woke up his hunting partner. The pair decided to try and appease the specter by offering one of the beavers they had killed. The Pakak seemed uninterested, until the men decided to dice the beaver into tiny little pieces, which they tossed into the fire. Now this just seems like a complete waste of meat. Now this seemed to satisfy the creature enough that it departed, never to be seen again. Remember, ladies, if your man is a Pakak, he's a selfish lover. He will not eat the beaver. Another skeletoid type figure that pops up from time to time is the stick man. Barton Nunnally shares an account from eyewitness Simon Howes. In 1982, when I was a student nurse at Worley Hospital, Brentwood in Essex, England, I encountered a stick person in the grounds of the hospital as I was walking home one night. It loped across the roadway, having been seemingly pressed up against a wall. It stopped when it saw me and raised its arms in fright and quickly walked off into the undergrowth. It was very tall, with very thin, extremely long arms and legs, and a very small oval head, totally black and no obvious clothing. I saw no face, even though it emerged very near a street lamp and so was well illuminated. I was terrified, and to this day, no one believes me. Now, Simon's stick man resembles similar figures reported throughout the early 2000s. A Hampshire woman also saw one of these beings late one evening while relaxing on a flatbed trailer by a campfire. The witness was looking across the field when a very large humanoid, twice the height of an average human being, jumped down from a tree just under 100 feet away. In the witness's words, it appeared to be made out of sticks. He landed in a crouched position with one hand on the ground in front of him. He seemed to look at me for about 5 seconds, then jumped straight back up into the tree and sort of strode away, and the branches along the line of the fence to the corner of the field, where he turned away from me and went out of sight. I and a friend whom I called over went and examined the place where he jumped down and where he turned and went away. We found nothing but a strong smell of decay. An argument can be made that a minor wave of stickmen swept the globe, as we have several accounts from America during this same time frame. A man passing through Chaffee, Missouri in December of 2003 claimed to look to the side of the road only to see a gangly figure keeping pace with his vehicle, even though he was moving at around 50 miles per hour. The shape was silvery, the color of aluminum, or, if you're from the UK, aluminium, and seemed almost stooped over as it ran alongside his vehicle. Eventually, the figure seemed to fade out of sight until the witness could no longer see it. Just 1 month later, another stickman appeared near Manchester, Indiana. On January 24th, 2004, another driver spotted something crouched beside a puddle of water along the side of North Hogan Road. The witness, who was traveling southbound, said it was around 7:30 p.m. when their headlights illuminated this bipedal figure. Now, when this happened, the figure stood, revealing its uncanny frame, which looked pencil thin and stretched about 7 feet tall. Each joint seemed far too sharp, almost pointed, and buckled as it walked off into the forest. A female witness from Elkader, Iowa, spotted something similar just a short time later. At around 11 p.m. on February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2004, something described as weird looking and pencil thin, stared at the witness for a few moments before abruptly running off. The incident left the witness so disturbed that she wept for 2 full hours afterward. I mean, eating Sbarro pizza has the same effect, so it's worth comparing these descriptions to a Brazilian case from the same time period. On January 31st, 2004, Alan Flavio of João Pessoa, Brazil, saw something tall and slim according to Alan. It had the same texture and color as graphite, that is to say, a dark gray. And most disturbingly, the figure reappeared to Alan later that night, where it paralyzed him in his bedroom as he slept. Whether this was an actual visitation or a nightmare with sleep paralysis remains anyone's guess. So what are these things? Do you believe the ancient tales of the entities like Baycock and Clutchbone? Could these be aliens? Hopefully, we will find the answers someday, no bones about it. But more importantly, I want to know what you guys think. So be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. I would love to hear from all of you. And if you guys enjoyed today's episode, be sure to go ahead and smack that like and subscribe button for more storytelling of the mysterious and supernatural. As always, guys, I love you all. Keep an open mind, and I'll see you guys in the very next episode.